Hello everyone, this is day 16 of 100 days of coding. Today we will be solving week 3 day 2 problems in Python. The topic is introduction to pandas and the first problem is calculating mean of a given series. So we need to write a Python function that accepts a list of numbers and returns the average of these numbers using a pandas series. Okay, so in input we have a list of numbers and for output we need to return the average value of the given list of integers. Okay, so let's go ahead and write the Python program for this. Okay, so first we import the pandas library and then we take the input numbers is equals to eval input. Okay, now we get the total list. We store the list in the numbers variable and result is equals to pd dot series numbers is the parameter dot mean. So now we are basically using pandas to uh, find the mean of this list of numbers and then we print the result. So yeah, let's go ahead and run this Python file. Okay, for a list containing only 5s, we get the average to be 5. So far so good. And next sample case, mean of first 10 integers is 5.5, which is also correct. So as you can see, this is the solution to the first problem, calculating mean of a series. And now we will be moving on to the second problem, filtering a data frame by column value. Okay, for now we need to write a Python function that takes a pandas data frame and a city name, a string. The function should return a new data frame containing only the rows where the city column matches the given city name. Okay, for this problem, the input format would be like first line of input will have the input data frame. So we will have a data frame like this. And the second line of input will have just the city name, which we want to find out if the city exists in the data frame or not. And only the data frame which has the city name will be outputted. Okay, so let's go ahead and write the Python program for this. So first, obviously, we import pandas library. After importing pandas, now we take input as df is equals to eval of square bracket plus input plus closing square bracket. Well, why we need to write like this is yeah. So why we need this square brackets over here is because here we in the input format of the question we do not have square brackets, but because of that Python will not recognize this input as a list of data frames, but we need Python to recognize this as a list of data frames for pandas to work correctly over it. So we are adding these square brackets and then we store the city name with the input function and yeah, we store the city name and strip spaces, strip quotations, and double quotations. So yeah, the input is done, and then we get the final result in let's write a function for that logic which takes df and city as parameters, and we will define the function over here. Define logic with parameters df and city. Okay, so first we need to convert this data frame into a pandas data frame df. Okay, now we converted the input df into a pandas data frame and stored it in the same variable. Now Now we create this result variable. Result is equals to data frame of data frame 1 equal to city. So what is happening over here is basically we are iterating through all the tuples in the data frame and checking if the value in column 1 is equal to the value stored in the city variable, and if the value is equal, we are taking all those tuples and making them into another data frame and storing them into the result, and then we return this result variable. Okay, now this result variable will have the required answer. Okay, now all we need to do is handle the printing logic. If result is empty, then we print empty data frame. Else, if it is not empty, for row in result dot the tuples index is equals to false in tuple row. Okay, so what we're basically doing here is we are first checking if the result is empty and printing empty data frame if it is empty. Else, if it is not empty, then we iterate through all the answers which we have got stored in the result and removing the indexes because the index is not required as per the output format. So let's copy this sample case and test it. Okay, yeah. So as you can see, we got the correct answer. The data frame which has the value ny of the city ny, we are getting that, and we are not getting the data frame which contains only Los Angeles city. So next we take this, paste it, empty data frame. So as we expected, there is no Paris. They are all both the data frames contain Tokyo city, and there is no Paris city, so we get empty data frame. So this is the correct program for the second problem. So let's move on to the third problem now. For third problem, it's selecting and renaming a column. The problem statement is write a Python function that takes a pandas data frame and returns a new data frame containing only two columns, the original product ID column and original price column. Additionally, the price column in the new data frame must be renamed to unit cost. Okay, so for this question, we can see that there are multiple possible input cases because in sample cases we get one type of input and in test cases we get another type of input. So sometimes we get the product ID, then product name, then price and some other quantity. Whereas other times we get the product ID and without product name directly the price and some other code. So in these both cases we need to be able to determine what is actually the price and what is the product quantity. We can easily determine product ID because product ID it is always the first column. So if we put that aside, for the price we need a special kind of logic, like I mean we need to check for the first integer in each tuple. So let's go ahead and write the program for that. First, we obviously import pandas as PD, and then we take data from input as input plus. Okay, now they're taking data is complete, and let's say we store the final answer in this variable result, which is a list for now. For rows in data, for each row in data, we can easily say that product ID is just the value in zeroth column. Price is difficult, so for now we just set price as none. Now we iterate through yeah, now we iterate through each of the row in data, each of the columns present in each row with this. So basically, we are iterating from column number one till however column might exist, like three columns, four columns, till how many ever columns exist. We are iterating through all those columns, and each time the value will be stored in this variable called item. And now, if is instance item in comma float. We are checking if the value stored in the item variable is an integer or float data type. If it is an integer or float data type, then we store that value in the price variable and break the loop. After coming out of the loop, we append this uh, list which we created right now into the result variable, result product ID, and what's the price. Yep. Now this basically we are creating a list where each tuple has the product ID and price. So after we iterate through all the rows in the input data and create this list, now we transform this into a pandas data frame result column names is equals to product ID and unit cost. Based on the output form, we don't need the index, so while printing, we print it as per row in result. Let me check. Yeah, okay. For row in result dot tuples index is equals to false. Print the row tuple of row, and let's execute this. We get product ID A1 and price 10. And in second sample case, we have two data frames simultaneously in one input line. So we will paste that. Again, both we can see the product ID and price of both the data frames. And test cases. Let's run this test case. ID1 and 50. We got the product ID and unit cost. And finally, let's run this test case. And again, product ID and the price, expected output. So this is the required program for this problem. So, and that solves all the week 3 day 2 problems of 100 days of coding. So I hope we meet again.